Yo, guys, it's Old Man Chi RDS here, back again. For what will hopefully be, at the very least, a weekly show where we give you the latest news regarding Manchester United, transfer news, players, managers, etc. Which will hopefully be informative. But before we get into it, guys, if you are new to the channel, to like, share, and subscribe to Red Devil Studio, follow us on Twitter and smash the notification button. Ladies Manchester United news. I'm joined by Tom, who just came back out. Tom, buddy. Tom, a journalist who, obviously, for those who've been long-standing members of the channel and watching, he's a very good friend of mine on the channel. He's done a really, really good job. You've probably seen him on a lot of channels as well. And quite frankly, is my go-to journalist, third tier, just below Fabrizio and Ornstein, regarding giving us actual reliable instead of speculative news that you often see on Twitter, and to give us a bigger an insight into the club and beyond. So, Tom, buddy, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm not doing so bad, G, and yeah, I hope everyone else is having a good time, and I had a good weekend, I guess, with weather's not been too bad in the UK as well for a lot of people, so yeah, I hope everyone's had a decent weekend and everything, and yeah, we'll speak about some Manchester United news that people want, and if anybody's got any questions or anything, feel free to put them in the live chat, and we'll try and get through them as quickly as we can and as in depth as we can.
Cool. Big up to Matt in the chat. Big up everyone on the show. Big up Don Ragnar. Long time no see. I didn't see you in the FA Cup stream, buddy. Where have you been, buddy? And how's your doctor study as well going? Hopefully, if you finish your training, you're doing okay. Please tell me that the Ten Hag and Van der Gag, the Hag and Gag, right? The Head Fred brothers are leaving. Well, I mean, I think we're going to talk about that as to what exactly Ten Hag's future actually is at Manchester United. And obviously, maybe some transfer news. There's some stuff I'm seeing. I want to ask maybe Tom regarding Bruno. Apparently, there's some talks about maybe him wanting to leave. I'm not sure how reliable. I think it's just contract discussions. I don't know. But I guess let's sort of get straight into it, guys. And so, big everyone is watching on Twitter and Twitch and Kick and stuff like that as well. Make sure you follow those links. So, Tom, obviously, I guess I'll maybe summarize if you've been watching, but United obviously had quite a bad season, finished 8th place, and the impression, given all the rumours and things going into the FA Cup final, was that it looked like Ten Hag was going to just be sacked regardless. That was what was going to happen. He was going to be sacked, gone, finished. And then he won the FA Cup. I suspect that if he lost it, it would have been announced the following day. But he won it. And that win, in combination with the fact that the managers available may not necessarily have been desirable to INEOS potentially, has led to a delay in making a decision. So Tom, could you give the panel, big up David T in the chat as well, by the way, a bit of an insight as to what is actually going on, because I think people are waiting. I mean, the Euros is going to be happening soon.
Mm-hmm.
We know it pre-season. Can you give us an idea as to what exactly is going on behind the scenes of INEOS, Ten Hag, other managers, etc.?
Yeah, in terms of INEOS's sort of end of season review, the way that they had actually worked the season out, and this was before even the FA Cup final. This has been in the planning for at least a couple of weeks. Towards the end of the season, the end of season review, there was a financial review, which was led by Jean-Claude Blanc, who's the acting CEO at the moment in time. And there's also a football review in place, led by Sir Dave Brailsford and Jason Wilcox, regarding the performance of the team, the expectations of the team for what they have achieved in comparison to what they'd expected to achieve from when INEOS actually came in, but also the expectations of what the club already had at the start of the season. The way that INEOS have led the review is they've based the end of season review solely on from game 1 against Wolves at the start of the season till the FA Cup final. So every single game is what they're basing the club review on. It's not the last couple of weeks. It's not ever since that they've came in. It's the whole season as a pan. So effectively, with regards to Erik Ten Hag's future, INEOS have looked at Ten Hag as a sort of coach who's not necessarily been given a structure to work with. Mm-hmm. They understand that they have made massive wholesale changes behind the scenes because they believe that the people who was in those roles weren't credible enough to take the club forward, i.e. Richard Arnold, Patrick Stewart as an acting CEO or an executive, John Murtaugh's left the football club. You know, there's many more that have left the football club behind the scenes as well, who've been a part of those sort of directors' camps or teams internally at Manchester United. So a lot of people have rolled out the door who INEOS look at and view as they've not necessarily given Ten Hag a lot of support. They don't believe that there's been a spine and a structure above him to work in. And they look at it as the perspective of that any person coming into Manchester United would struggle. And they take the models of Louis van Gaal and Jose Mourinho, for example, as two established managers in world football, came into Manchester United under relatively similar circumstances and structure, and they failed. And Ten Hag doesn't have the CV or the pedigree of those managers. So they understand that the expectations is going to be weighed down on him. But one of the things as well that INEOS looked at in particular has been the lack of wholesale targets that Erik Ten Hag has got. For example, in the first summer that he was in, he wanted Frankie de Jong. He didn't get the player that he wanted. He wanted to sign a centre-half in the summer, ideally, and he set his heart on getting Benjamin Pavard. He didn't get Pavard. He ended up going to Inter Milan. So there's key players that he's wanted for positions that he's not necessarily been backed in. INEOS understand that, and one of the major parts of the review that they're looking massively into, and they're doing an internal review, like I said, about the football operations as well, is the medical department. They can't understand how you can have upwards of 70 cases of illness and injury through the whole course of a season where players are missing in action. It's never heard of before. They don't understand the cause of it, and they're leading the review based upon the injuries have had an impact on the season, but also the results have not been good enough. And the expectation, as far as I understand, from INEOS when they came in was they expected Manchester United to stabilise as a top four club, and the ambition in the last summer, for the expectation for the whole season was the exact same thing as what INEOS expected when they came in the club, which was maintain a top four position and maybe make a bit of ground in terms of points leading up further to the table. It was all about development. And especially with INEOS anyway, they don't believe that Erik Ten Hag has developed the squad quite how he would have wanted to have, but they understand that injuries have made a major impactor of that. And more to the point around the FA Cup final, the rumours that were leading up to the FA Cup final, and then even the night before saying that Erik Ten Hag was already sacked and things like that, that was never the decision. The decision was always that they were going to have an end of season review, that they were going to let it, if you like, settle down for a week, maybe to 2 weeks, if they want to take a longer view of the season. But once everything's done with, it's done with. There's nothing else that can be thrown into it. There's no more injuries that you can say is an excuse. There's no more, trophies that he can win to maybe back his corner. That's where you can review it when there's nothing else to play for. And the one thing that I know of INEOS in particular anyway, they have sounded out managers. They have spoken to Thomas Tuchel's camp. When Roberto De Zerbi announced that he's left Brighton, they've spoken to Roberto De Zerbi's camp. They've spoken to many different managers within Europe and their agencies to see about availability. They haven't contacted any clubs around compensation fees, but they've put the calls out there in Europe. So if they want to make a change based upon what they believe the end of season review will tell them, they can make a change and they've got the contacts there to go. So it's not going to be like Manchester United are waiting to make a decision on Ten Hag. And if they end up getting rid of him, then they're going to have to chase a manager for weeks and maybe even a month. While the Euros is going on, like you said, with pre-season, it's going to be a simple case of they're going to revert to the targets that they've already spoken to. So effectively, there isn't a final decision on Erik Ten Hag's future because they wanted to wait until the end of the season to review what they've actually achieved and what the expectations are for the season. They're disappointed they didn't get the top 4, but they're happy that the season ended on a high where they got the FA Cup. And the injury factor is being put into play, but they're looking at that more as an external factor rather than using it as an excuse. So they're investigating that as an internal matter at the club, not necessarily based more towards why the results of the performances have been so poor. So no final decision has been made, but when they're looking at sounding out the sort of high-profile managers that they have done, it would tend toward and team to more towards that they are looking at the options out there and saying, is it better to go with a new option, a person who we believe solely in because we will hire that person and that will be effectively our person in there, our guy that we want and we appointed, because the only thing that's standing as the last man standing between the old regime and the new one that's come in is Erik ten Hag. Everybody else has left and everybody else has gone.
Yeah.
He's the only person that is left. And the only person that can, if you like, give the questions and give the answers for why this season has been so dramatic and so, disgraceful almost with what happened for large parts of it, is Erik ten Hag. And coaching has to come into an impact of that as well. And the coaching of the players for this season has been shocking. It has to be said. But it's leaning, I would say anyway, it's leaning more towards that they will probably make a change based upon the names that they've sounded out there, but there is no final decision.
So if you had to say, well, obviously there's some questions in the chat that we'll address. So obviously make sure you guys, it's obviously quite a few people, I think 36 people, hit the like button, guys. The 36 people are watching, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and obviously follow us on Twitter and Twitch as well. Don't forget to subscribe, and obviously I'll address your questions in the chat. Just give in the chat. So so just to touch on that point, Tom, so you think that from what you're hearing that INEOS are more likely not to make a change because, as you said, everyone has changed, everyone is gone out, they've got different things. They're more likely, based on taking everything into account, to actually to change the manager and go for the options available, then stick with Ten Hag. Is that what you would say? Yeah,
well, the way that they look at it is that Ten Hag isn't their manager. He's not their selection. And if he was on the open market and he never came to Manchester United 18 months ago, 2 years ago, he would probably be a name that they would be looking at and they would have probably sounded him out. But they've not internally said that Erik ten Hag at any point since they've came in that they fully support him and they fully back him. Even in the final declaration message after the FA Cup final, Sir Jim Ratcliffe wrote a message out to Manchester United supporters groups, and he also wrote it out just as a public statement through Manchester United. He never once referenced Erik ten Hag. He's been asked many a times about, do you fully support the manager and his coaching staff in place? He's never once gave public or backing to him. He's never privately made any sort of connection with Ten Hag to say that you are the guy that we want. And I think when you ultimately look at over the course of the season, he always said that he had this backing. They're planning with him for the future. And then he got to the end of the season and he had a post-match interview with Gary Lineker and Alan Shearer. When they put the questions towards him, he said, I don't know my future. But he'd already said weeks in advance, prior to that final, that he'd been given the backing. So Erik ten Hag does not know his future. The end of season review, like I say, is in play. And I would expect probably from Monday, if the very latest, to Friday, that a final decision will be made. And the assessments will be counted up. And like I said, there's many different protocols of the review that they're looking at. The financial review, because they're going to lose money for not being in the Champions League. They are going to lose a lot of sponsorship money based upon that. And also, again, you look at the performance side of it with the injuries that they've had, but that's an external factor. And then they were doing a review on player performance and coaching ability. So they're covering all the areas of where they believe the season has gone wrong.
Thanks, Tom. Let me quickly come into the comments. Obviously, a lot of questions coming in. Big up, Tom, and big up you guys in the chat. Almost 40 plus people watching. Please make sure you like, and subscribe. And let me just start with so I'll start with Matty Basicles with the something. Just when is Dan Ashworth coming in as director of football? Any advance on that, Tom, by any chance?
Yeah, in terms of Dan Ashworth, currently right now, there's a case been put forward to the Court of Arbitration where he's legally trying to get himself out of Newcastle United. Now, behind the scenes, Manchester United's lawyers have actually put forward a financial package for Dan Ashworth to say, here's effectively a bundle of cash. Get the best financial and football director lawyers that you can, and get yourself out of Newcastle, and we'll flip the bill to get you here. And the way that it's coming out is that Dan Ashworth had a email sort of send back between the incoming CEO Omar Barada, who was a massive benefactor in trying to convince Dan Ashworth to come away from Newcastle. I believe Jean-Claude Blanc played a hand in it as well, and there was Dave Brailsford who he has a personal relationship with Dan Ashworth as well, from times that they've had with the FA and different organisations. When he sent an email off to say that he wanted to, that he'd be open to the idea of coming to Manchester United, and he was open to leaving Newcastle for the project. When he'd sent the email off to Omar Barada and he'd filed it off, he'd sent it via using his Newcastle network. Now, the issue that declares is that the phrase in football is now used anyway as tapping up. That can have that point there that I've just made will have a massive impact on that arbitration, because Newcastle can use that as a backlash to say, we don't have to release Dan Ashworth because he's breached an agreement. He's still under contract with them. He's getting paid millions of pounds out of a contract with Newcastle, but he'd already basically declared that he wasn't willing to work for them, even though he had a contract with them. Yeah. So effectively, he's in a legal limbo. He can't get himself out of it. So Manchester United are putting up a financial blocker in front of him and saying, listen, do whatever you can to get your snout out there earlier. And in the meantime, we'll try and work a deal with Newcastle. But working a deal with Newcastle, Manchester United declared compensation of in and around £4 million, and that's all they're willing to pay. And Newcastle want in excess of 15 to 20 million pounds. To be completely honest with you, they've been at a standstill for, I would say, coming up to nearly 8. You could maybe make a case for about 6 to 8 weeks. They've not got anywhere. So Jim Ratcliffe has even personally met with the directors at Newcastle. He's met with Jamie Rubin and Amanda Staveley to try and broker a deal. They've not brokered any deal. Negotiations are flapping, to be completely honest with you. And at the end of the day, with Dan Ashworth at the moment, he's got a contract with Newcastle, but he's breached it. Yeah. He's got an agreement to come to Manchester United, but he can't sign a contract because he's already in a contract somewhere else. And if this doesn't work itself out and manifest itself out, the gardening leave term with Newcastle is that if they win the arbitration against Dan Ashworth, they can hold him under that contract until 2025. And from that also, they can sue Manchester United for effectively what in football we phrase it as tapping up one of their directors who's under contract. So then Manchester United will get financially screwed for it, even though it's Dan Ashworth's mess up. And this is where when people start saying, when is Dan Ashworth coming in, there's no declaration on it because it is a legal challenge at this moment in time.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Tom. I mean, and I think this stuff like this, what you said, is important. I think, especially when because I think there's a lot of section of our fan base that think, INEOS has got the structure, things in place, new season, get rid of Ten Hag, and then suddenly now everything is all going to fall into place. And I don't think people realize that when you're talking about stuff like that regarding, he's supposed to be a new director of football as well, and we're in this legal limbo with Newcastle, and it's going to obviously affect things going forward. So things aren't always rosy. Let me quickly go to some of the other questions. Let's just have a look. Let's have a look. Yes, injuries. Ten Hag. Just quickly go to some of the questions and his comments. Again, Matt, again. So just briefly. So actually, no, I'll come back to that. David T just says, "Is Adebayo to Adredbo, sorry, to Chelsea really done?" Says David T. Because I'll be quick to answer.
Yeah, Toast and the DM, yeah, it's looking very likely that he will sign with Chelsea.
Sign with Chelsea. Okay, that's fair. Rob then says, "Hi, to say if they say they do make a managerial change, who is your money on who's to come in? Basically, who do you think, from what you're hearing, is the sort of front runner to replace Ten Hag if he does get sacked, Tom?"
Yeah, I think the expectation with INEOS is, and people, there's two different categories that you look at a manager in modern day football. You either go for somebody who's got pedigree and experience in the game, or you go for somebody who's maybe up and coming but has had success. So this is where you can maybe define the links that you've had with maybe Kieran McKenna, who's had relative success with Ipswich. He's had back-to-back promotions. The financial package that he's had to work with at Ipswich has been very minuscule to what other clubs have had to work with to try and get up to the Premier League. He's done very well on a tight budget. He's coached players well. He's got players on side. So you have maybe that sort of option, like what Chelsea are doing right now with Maresca, who's had a similar situation, but Leicester are in a lot more financially beneficial situation where they have a lot more money available to them in the Championship to get themselves back up to the Premier League than, say, an Ipswich do. That's where you can differentiate those two managers. And then you have maybe the managers that have been linked, the likes of, say, Thomas Tuchel, who has had success at the highest level. He's won trophies, albeit he's got two Champions League finals. He's lost one, he's won one. Arguably, you could say if maybe Manuel Neuer didn't do the mistake that he did in the Bernabeu, he could have been on his way to another with Bayern. He's worked in He worked in, I would say now, 3 big football clubs. Bayern, you can say again for Chelsea and PSG. So he's worked in different environments. He's worked with big players, and he's won things. Listen, people can maybe rave about him if you like him as a character, or he talks well with the media. He's a good character. He gets players on side, and the ultimate beneficiary of someone like Thomas Tuchel is he's very tactical, but he's flexible with his tactics. And at Manchester United, especially with how the season has been this season, where you've had so many injuries, Thomas Tuchel's almost an ideal coach for that, because he would just tactically tweak the squad or the formation. So then you're not going to be losing as many games. You're not going to be leaking as many goals. He would find solutions for the problems that have happened this season. So that's what I mean between the two managers. So in terms of the solid links for a manager, my understanding is that INEOS want somebody. They understand Manchester United have to have an established manager.
Yeah.
They understand that you can't necessarily go for a manager who has just come up from the Championship and had maybe a good couple of seasons. Kieran McKenna is a good coach, but he's not worked in the Premier League yet. That's the difference. Whereas someone like Thomas Tuchel has had.
I'll interrupt you, Tom. So the links to, because there was obviously a lot of McKenna to United talks. Was that just media hype, or were there actual genuine concrete links?
No, they were genuine links, and that's what I was trying to say. Where there's a differentiating between the two coaching styles. Like, for example, if I have to list all the managers that they've spoken to, I can list at least 4 that they have spoken to. Kieran McKenna was one of them. He has signed a new deal, so he's going to stay at Ipswich.
Yeah.
You had Thomas Frank at Brentford, who they'd spoken to. He looks like he's going to stay at Brentford now anyway. Roberto De Zerbi's just left the job. And there's a release clause compensation with Brighton to release him from all legalities for less than £5 million. And then you've also got Thomas Tuchel, who is going to be out of job anyway. So there's no contract, there's no buying him out of anywhere. It would just be a straight free run if you wanted to go and get a manager.
Sorry to interrupt you again, Tom. So by you saying this moment, I'm taking to believe that Pochettino isn't in the conversation either.
No. Pochettino, as far as I'm aware anyway, they didn't actually expect him to get sacked from Chelsea. As far as with Pochettino anyway, I believe he wants to time out of work, reassess everything. He'd only recently gone into Chelsea with the idea of being there for a fair few years, a plan, a project, and he's not even lasted a year, and he's already gone. So I look at Pochettino, I think he wants to reassess a lot of things. He's had a bit of failure at PSG, didn't necessarily achieve the high levels at Spurs where he won something. And then Chelsea, again, you could say for the last part of the season was good. Most of the season, not so good. So I think he wants to reassess everything. Whereas someone like Thomas Tuchel, who I would put as far as now with what we're hearing with Kieran McKenna, as far as I was aware with both of the sides of it, Kieran McKenna was the ideal candidate that they liked in terms of an up-and-coming coach, and Thomas Tuchel was the ideal candidate that they liked in terms of an experienced coach. And they understand that Manchester United need experience. They need pedigree. They need a coach who's going to enforce himself on the club and on the players. And they believe that Thomas Tuchel, out of all the options that they've got right now, fits that profile best. So if they did make a change, if I had to put my money on anybody, Thomas Tuchel's the sort of guy that I think they would go for. And from what I've heard from regarding Thomas Tuchel's side personally, he would love to come to Manchester United. He sees it as one of the biggest jobs in world football. And there's 3 jobs, arguably, that a lot of up-and-coming coaches look up in football that you can't refuse if they come knocking. Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Manchester United. And if you get one of those 3 jobs come knocking, you don't turn it down. That's normally a rhetoric in football. So if Thomas Tuchel did get offered the Manchester United job, I think he would take it straight away. And upon leaving from Bayern, he's already happy to go into work. He's not like what Pochettino's feeling, where he wants a bit of time out of the game to reassess things. He's ready to go.
Yeah. That's fair. Thanks, Tom. Appreciate the question. Like I said, I'll come back to my next question. Guys, there's 100 people plus watching. Please like the video, like the video, and subscribe if you're new. Bottom tour, my corner. Well, the amazing Tom and journalist on with me as well. To summarize those new, we are like about almost 30 minutes into the stream. And I see some comments being like, what's the breaking news? What's happened, etc. Like, we obviously talked quite a bit at the beginning of the stream. So if you want to go back to the beginning and listen to what we said regarding Ten Hag. But just as a brief summary, Ten Hag and INEOS, they're obviously undergoing an internal review regarding Ten Hag's performance for the whole season. But you know, with some of what Tom was saying is that the likelihood is that Ten Hag, it seems anyway, that INEOS are probably leaning more towards letting Ten Hag go and bringing someone else that's new, given the fact they've done that for everybody up until this point, and bringing in their new guy. And the likelihood is that's probably going to be one of the likes of Pochettino or De Zerbi types. That seems to be where we're going. It doesn't. And I obviously have to clarify to Thomas. It doesn't look like that we seem to be in a situation where Ten Hag is. Well, I'll ask you this, Tom, before I go into the comments. Like, is there a scenario where Ten Hag stays? Do you think?
To be completely honest with you, if they had every single person in the structure that they wanted, because I don't buy into this myth that Dan Ashworth's going to be here for the summer. He's not. I don't believe he will get out of the legal limbo. I don't believe that he'd be able to start in Manchester United straight away, even if he wins the legal battle, because he's still got to wait some months and there's still got to be a compensation price agreed with Newcastle. So if everybody was in place that they would want ideally, Barada's not starting until till late July. That's a quarter of the summer gone already. Yeah. So really, the only one that they've got out of the iron guard that they've appointed is Jason Wilcox.
Yeah.
And in terms of a liaison, Jason Wilcox is brilliant with young players, brilliant with moulding with managers, and actually setting up a systemized style of play for a football club. And the sort of style that they're wanting emulates very much of a aggressive possession-based style, very likened to what you see of Pep Guardiola's team, but they want to be front foot football. That's the difference. And in emulating effectively, if we take, for example, maybe Roberto De Zerbi's time at Brighton, is the sort of football that they like. When Thomas Tuchel was at Dortmund and he was at Mainz. I know it's going back quite a while. He played his very systemized style, characterized like that. And to get to the sort of credibility that these managers have done, they don't fall back on their plan. They want somebody who's going to fall in line with the style of play that they want. And Erik ten Hag doesn't necessarily believe he has the players to play that way. So if they do keep him, the idea that I would look at is, if they did keep him, they're probably going to have to give him a new contract. So that might be 2-3 years, because it shows an intent of that you back the guy. It shows an intent you're going to recruit players for him to play that way. And Ten Hag is happy to try and coach that way. Whether he's successful or not in coaching that way, he's going to try it. And if that's the way that they go, then a lot of these players are going to either have to get on board with it if they don't want to play for the guy, or they're going to have to get out the door and find a new football club. If not, you're going to have to play for the guy. Then it's as simple as that. But in the all likelihood of it, the way that it's been portrayed anyway, especially more towards Sir Jim Ratcliffe personally, I don't think that there is that relationship with Ten Hag. For example, when you look at the FA Cup final, he gave Pep Guardiola a gardening hug, shook his hand, had a couple of choice words. With Ten Hag, it was almost a little bit of a just a bit of a shake of the hand, and well done and everything, and almost brushed it to one side. And then in the post-match report that he put out there to Manchester United fans, he didn't even emulate with Erik ten Hag's name or resonate his name as the manager or the coach. He always just references him as the manager. He never references him as Erik ten Hag. That's the difference. That's why, anyway, I would say it slides more towards that they will make a change than they will keep him. But there is that possibility that they can still keep him. But I think that's based more upon what the experts think. And the only expert that they have in the building right now with football credibility at the highest level is Jason Wilcox. That's it.
Thank you for that, Tom. I'm going to just quickly, I'm just going to see if there's any other questions. A lot of the questions, I think, are coming in about the players. Like I said, we've given a summary, Genghis, so hopefully that's answered your question. But yeah, I'm just going to quickly scroll through just to check the questions in the chat. Well, most of them seem to be about regarding players, so I'm just going to get rid of the managerial direct talk, and then we can go and talk about the players. And if anyone has any other questions to Ten Hag, we will revisit it. But obviously, we are about 35 minutes into the stream, so I think for those, if you do have our new, obviously there's over 100 people watching, please like, please subscribe, please engage, please get involved. Really, really appreciate it. If you do have questions about Ten Hag, about Ten Hag's future, I'd advise going back to the beginning of the stream and watching for Revealing to get that juice up, because Tom obviously revealed a lot of important information and a lot of detailed information regarding what is going on behind the scenes with the club, with Ten Hag, etc. I think sometimes it's easy to be like, say he's definitely going or say he's definitely staying. So, but the reality is that like one can never be 100% about anything. However, we can tell you the pattern and the way that things look and the way that things are going. And the reality is that it looks like it's going in one direction, not the other direction. So let me just bring out some comments. So I think let's have a good question. So I think Jay said, why isn't Paul Mitchell considered? I think this is regarding another director of football. Was Paul Mitchell considered? Why isn't he involved? Any thoughts about that, Tom?
Yeah, when they were assessing candidates for a director of football, they actually had 3 candidates on the list. They looked at Dan Ashworth as the one that they wanted. They've had the struggle trying to get him, but they've convinced him enough to the point where he wants to come. So they're prepared to wait to get him, however long that will be, even if it's till 2025. They're prepared to wait to get him. They'd rather get the right man than get somebody that they don't believe is credible. Paul Mitchell was a name that they looked at as well for a director of football, but they didn't think. But because he's never had a director of football role, in football, they didn't believe that he was going to emerge as that and lead a massive recruitment overdrive. Paul Mitchell's best work has come as a head of recruitment, not as a director of football. And he's worked as a technical director as well, which is the role that Jason Wilcox has currently right now at Manchester United. So the role differentiates with Paul Mitchell. And another name that they looked at was Dougie Freedman, who was at Crystal Palace, who's doing a decent job as a director of football. But again, he's not got any pedigree in the game to suddenly jump from Palace all the way up to Manchester United and bang to then take a recruitment team on and go for it. Whereas Dan Ashworth has the experience. He's worked in the Premier League. He's developed Brighton pretty well. You could say maybe a similar thing for what he's done at Newcastle in the short time that he's been there. He's recruited players well for the way that Eddie Howe wants to play and a style of play, which emulates effectively what INEOS want to revolutionise with Man United, which is have a systemised style of play and recruit players to play that way. And then if you're not getting results and it doesn't work, well, you can't necessarily say the players aren't good enough, because at least the players can play a certain way and they understand playing that way. And then if it doesn't work, you can just get a new manager in or a new coach in who then might come in and work with those players who understand his way of playing, and he might get a better tune out of them. That's the thought process, rather than going for 5-6 different manager styles like United have done for years and get nowhere. So effectively, Paul Mitchell has been considered, but he hadn't been considered for director of football. He was almost in limbo to come in as a head of recruitment. Same thing with Dougie Freedman, but the way that they look at those two guys looked at it was, if I go to Manchester United as a head of recruitment, I'm not really taking a step up in terms of a role. I'm just taking a step up as a football club. And they wouldn't have the operational control that they have at the clubs that they have been at in the past. They don't have that control. They're not their own boss. They're not their own leader. That's the issue that both of them had.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it. So obviously we visited Hag a little bit towards the end. But those who obviously are watching, Garlington Hag. Thanks, obviously, for everyone who is watching. Obviously, over 100 people are watching. Really appreciate it. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to HAG'S Studio. But it literally takes a second to like. It helps with the algorithm, and obviously comment below when the video's done. If you want to go back to the beginning of the stream, the first, almost 35 minutes is a good 10 Hag comments as to what is going on. Get involved with that. We're going to pivot slightly for the next, 50 minutes and actually talk about player transfers, rumors, things regarding that, and obviously a couple of questions regarding that. So we'll obviously we'll start with that, and I think the questions that come in will probably lead into it, because I think a lot of the questions when players actually address some of the questions or discussion we're going to have. So I think the first thing which I was again going to Matt, and then we'll go to some others, actually, is that given everything that you said, who's actually going to oversee the transfers and negotiations given for this for this period, given everything that's been going on?
Yeah, well, because they don't have a designated director of football in place, they are placing a lot of pressure on Jason Wilcox's shoulders. Now, the one thing that I will say with Jason Wilcox is he's a brilliant guy. He's a very good talent spotter, in particular in younger players. For example, the City Football Group with their youth system and academy, he's worked with players like Phil Foden and identified him as a player who fitted the future of that club. Jadon Sancho was another player, Tosin Adeyemi, Jeremy Frimpong. There's loads of different players that I could name off the list. Rico Lewis, who's currently in the system. So Oscar Bobb's another player who came through the system there. There's a lot of good young players that have come through that system who are either still at City or have gone on and done things at other football clubs and moved on. But Jason Wilcox identified those players as fitting the bill. So they're going to use his expertise in setting a style of play, but also recruiting players to fit that style. And in particular, they want to aim for an age bracket of between 20 and 26 years old, no higher. And the profile of players that they want to go for people who they believe have character, can mould into a leadership figure for the football club, but also can develop. So if you buy a 20-year-old from South America who maybe doesn't understand the language, it's a different environment for them, it's a different culture for them. Over, say, 3 seasons with a manager or a coach, they can develop them in terms of their football ability. The club can help them develop in terms of their language skills. And then Jason Wilcox, as a technical director, can help them adapt to such a massive football club because he's worked at City where the expectations are high with Pep Guardiola, with Pellegrini. He worked with big managers at Manchester City. So he understands expectations and standards. So they're leaning a lot of pressure on him in terms of overseeing the transfers. In terms of the negotiations are going to be led currently until mid-July by Jean-Claude Blanc, who has experience of being a CEO in big football clubs. He worked with PSG as a head general manager. He worked also at Juventus as a CEO and as a CFO. He helped rebuild and finance the new Allianz Stadium for Juventus. And then he also brokered a deal with one of the biggest sporting brands in Jordan for Paris Saint-Germain, which broke record figures for a sponsorship deal at that time. So he's got big brands. And put it this way, if he can negotiate with big brands like Jordan, he can negotiate financial deals to get a new stadium built from scratch in 2 years when Juventus arguably had financial difficulties, like they did. The guy's pretty much turned water to wine. So as a short-term solution, he's not going to go into a negotiation, get his pants pulled down. And like I referred to before with Dan Ashworth, they put a figure in place that they believe is right, which is £4 million, and they're not budging. And that's how Jean-Claude Blanc, as the acting CEO, is going to work. He sees a value, he believes in the value, and if he doesn't believe it's worth going a bit more over to get what they want, they're not going to do it. They're not going to bow down to demands of other football clubs. The day of that is done for Manchester United. They understand that they're going to have to pay a bit more because of Manchester United, but they're not going to pay over the odds for Manchester United. So the reference that I was used with Jean-Claude Blanc, for example, is when Man United are good because they want to target a centre half this summer because they're already losing Raphael Varane.
Yeah.
If they would have signed a player like Harry Maguire now, if they got quoted £80 million, they would offer in the region of 65, but they wouldn't budge. And that's how they're going to work. It's either you take the offer that we're going to give you because we're Manchester United and we're the biggest football club in the land, or we're going to walk away and go somewhere else. And they're going to trust, like I say, Jason Wilcox's talent ID to get them the best players that they want. That's for now as a short-term solution. When Berardi eventually comes in July, he'll take leadership role, but he'll do it as a joint role for the rest of the summer with Jean-Claude Blanc as negotiations. And then the ideal solution is they can hopefully then get Dan Ashworth in, who will then be the talent ID expert, who will work on solely based recruitment. And then Jason Wilcox will almost be another pair of eyes on the training ground, a youth figure for a lot of the young players to mould them, and focus predominantly on having a relationship with the manager and building a style of play. That's the basis of what he will then do. But they're having to almost bend over backwards to do all these different jobs and roles because not everybody's right here and now. That's the issue.
Thank you, Tom. Right. Appreciate it for news. Well, guys, again, over 100 plus people watching again. Please, if you are new and if you are listening, please subscribe to the channel, bottom right corner, the like. It is free. Really appreciate it. We aim to get to 5K subscribers by let's set it 5K subscribers by the beginning of the new season. Let's go. Let's get to it. So we appreciate one for your ongoing support. So still on the players. So let me see. So we'll talk about Bruno in a second. So actually, Sancho, and I think like this encompasses Matt and Tom's question actually as well. Actually, where is it? We'll talk about centre backs in a second, but Sancho because it's relevant. So David T says, "Is the news about Sancho waiting for Ten Hag to get sacked before he comes back real? or rage fuel. And you can add to that, like, basically what is going on with Sancho this transfer, what's going to happen to him. But yeah, what's going on?
Yeah. Look, in terms of the whole situation, the basics of it is this: Jadon Sancho called out the manager like he did.
Mm-hmm.
The manager didn't agree with it.
Mm-hmm.
He asked for an apology privately. He didn't even want Jadon Sancho to publicly go out on social media and retract his comments. Just take back what you said privately and we'll forget about it. Jadon Sancho refused on multiple occasions to apologise privately. So he didn't have to do it publicly so everybody would know. He only had to do it privately, and he refused to do so because he believed that if he apologised for being what he was referred to as being lazy and unprofessional, it would be a due diligence to his expectations of what he believes he is a high-profile footballer. So, effectively, he stood his ground for what he believed in, and the manager exiled him out in the way that he had done because he didn't just apologise privately and they would have moved on from it, and that was it. He wanted to motivate Sancho by, you can say it for what it is, put him out there in the media. He's done it many a time with players. It's like Garnacho off a couple of weweeks ago. He did it last season. He criticised a lot of the younger players in the squad for not having high-level expectations of what it means to play for Man United. He does this a lot with managers, and this is somehow how managers work. They put maybe a bit of a bait out there and see if players are going to bite to it, and hopefully they bite in terms of show performance on the pitch, not type on a keyboard and blow up on Twitter. But in terms of him waiting for Ten Hag to get sacked, I don't necessarily believe in that rumour. I do believe that, like I said before about Jason Wilcox, I think if they wanted to rekindle things, Jason Wilcox can repair that relationship between the two of them. He knows Jadon Sancho from the Manchester City Academy. He worked with him as a young player. He understands the player and the characteristics. He's been in place with Ten Hag now and had a bit of a relationship with him for well over 2 to 3 weeks now. So he understands the manager, the demeanour of the guy. If they decide to stay with him, that relationship can be repaired. And I believe Jason Wilcox would be a massive factor of why it would be repaired. If not, and it won't be repaired, then regardless, irrespectively of what happens to Ten Hag or not, if Ten Hag is to go, I think Jadon Sancho would almost look at that as, I'll come back and have a fresh start at Manchester United. But if he is here, a new manager might come in place anyway and say, I don't want a player who's going to act like that anyway. So it swings and roundabouts. But the decision on Jadon Sancho won't be Ten Hag's decision. It will be INEOS's and the director's decision of what they do with him. That's how they are operating. We will decide on what players we bring in and what players we go out, but you will have your opinion. We can listen to it. We don't have to listen to it. It's up to us. All you are to us is a coach and a manager. You get results, you bring us trophies. That's it. We do the rest for you. And that is effectively what they believe Ten Hag has lacked for 18 months. That bit of backing behind the scenes, and that he doesn't have to have massive control over the football club. He can just do what he's employed to do, which is be a manager, be a coach. That's it. So, effectively with Sancho, I believe in hindsight you can look at it for what it is. If Ten Hag's not here, I think he would look at it as a fresh start. But irrespective of if he's here or not, the directors and the football operations department will make a decision on Jadon Sancho.
Thank you for the update, Tom. Bro, guys, over 200 people in the stream watching. If you have not liked the video, like the vid, please like the vid and subscribe to the channel. If you're new, bottom right hand corner, this is obviously going to be a very, it's going to be, well, hopefully a big summer for Manchester United with transfers, potentially new coaches, obviously Euros, etc. You know, so make sure that you like. Make sure you get notified as well, obviously, and then a bottom corner, and we'll take things. So Tom's going to be back in a few minutes. So he'll be back in a few minutes. Sorry. So let me see if I can address some of the questions that you can see, and just shout and address some of the comments actually as well. So I'll leave some of the questions for Tom, obviously, to get back. I'll just read some of your comments in the chat. Let me have a quick look while I wait for Tom to get back. And react to. Let's have a look. Let's have a look on my. Defending the manager up and down when he lies and shows responsibility away from himself. I was going to let him get 6 months, but not after this interview. That's interesting. That's interesting. Everton Costa, he didn't want Casemiro as a glazer sign. It's been cited enough. He wanted De Jong, never got Kim and Jay, never got Kane, he didn't get none of his number one target. See what he wanted Timber. I mean, that's a fair point. You could make a case. I mean, my only rebuttal to that would be, it sounds to me like Mason Mount and Anthony were his he really wanted Mount. He wanted Anthony. And both of those players have been, well, Mount injury tax and Anthony, so I'm not going to sit here and say I agree with you, but I also agree that, like, I'm not going to sit up and say that Ten Hag's talent ID has proven to be, he wanted Timber, but Lizandra, if anything, is proven, although he's been out injured, but Timber has also been out injured, so Lisandra's probably the better defender so far from what we've seen. Let's have a look. If Ten Hag, do you think so? Yeah. So I think I'll talk about that with Tom. But to summarize what Tom said, it does sound like it will probably be, if Ten Hag leaves, which is looking more likely, it'll be probably between Poch and Tuchel and De Zerbi. United wants an established coach, so none of this Maresca and up and coming stuff like that. I think INEOS wants to work with an established coach, and so therefore I think someone like Tuchel. Now, I have my own opinion on that. I personally think that Thomas Tuchel is a risk, not because I think Tuchel is a terrible manager, but because Tuchel, you've got to look at Tuchel's track record in that he got sacked by PSG, Chelsea, and Bayern, arguably for non-footballing reasons. He got a PSG to a final the year before, then got sacked. Why? He fell out with the board. He got Chelsea. He won them a Champions League. He got sacked the following season. Why? He fell out with the board. Bayern Munich. Oh yeah, okay, yes, he didn't win anything. We got into a semi-final. He didn't get this. He didn't have to have the players he wanted. He got sacked. Why? He fell out with the board. So I do think that Tuchel is a risk, because this is a man who has a track record of falling out with the board, and he's going to want a level of control over recruitment, which INEOS have said repeatedly they don't want to have. So I don't know. I get what INEOS are saying, but I'd be very, very surprised if. I wouldn't be surprised, but I'd be very concerned of INEOS going down a direction, unless, of course, they've made it clear to Tuchel how they're going to operate. So I guess we'll see what happens in that respect. Let's see more comments here. We'll talk about Tadido when Tom comes back. I say, yeah, shout out for Tom for keeping us in the loop. Yes, buddy. Hopefully be on. At the very least, what we want to do is we want to at least make this at least minimum once a week, maybe two, depending on the news that's coming in, but at least a minimum of once a week to keep people informed about what's going on, and to try and differentiate a lot of the clickbait nonsense that's going on around Twitter. Let's have a look. United wants a manager as a puppet. I think coach players, INEOS and clubs players them to be fit to Tuchel. Well, Tuchel, I mean, yeah, Tuchel's not going to be a puppet. It's going to be the rest is no to Tuchel. I'm interested in what people's thoughts are on Tuchel, if they want him in or not. Ronald says, please let Ten Hag stay. So that few. In fact, I think I put up a poll saying Ten Hag in or out, and wow, geez, I mean, 303 votes. 300. Big up everyone, by the way, for voting, man. I appreciate it. I didn't expect it to be that unanimous. I mean, I did not expect it to be unanimous, but watch happened to Ten Hag. 81%. 81% of you guys think Ten Hag should in, and only 20% say Ten Hag should be out. That's wild. And that's a good portion of you. 309 votes, guys. Ten Hag in, 80. So, I mean, I'm undecided either way, but I think that poll, if this poll is representative of what the fans actually think, then my goodness, INEOS really, really, really may be going against the fans. They really may be going against, because 81% of you guys want this dude to stay. People are backing Ten Hag, and fair enough, fair enough. So apologies for the guys who are tuned in. If you're just tuning in, make sure you like and subscribe to the video, bottom right-hand corner. Also, go to the beginning of the stream, watch the first 40 minutes or so, and you'll see my man Tom, who literally be right back, giving you the insights to what is going on with Ten Hag behind the scenes. So let's have a look. Comments. I'll get to some of the questions. I could answer this one. Are you interested in clubs like China about United trying to gather United fans Jamaica together? Well, I'm not Jamaican. I'm not in Jamaica, but send me a DM on Twitter at WeUnitedX. Follow me on Twitter. Send me a DM, and I'm always happy to get involved. Let me. I'm happy with that. So yeah, just send me a DM. Let's have a look. Still comment. Lucky. You put a lot. Lucky thing. You put a lot of comments in, but not a lot of questions, so I can't read them all. Big up, Jarvis man. Hope you're doing well, buddy. Let's have a look. Aaron says, I mean, I can answer this actually. Is Sancho left or right winger? Because United got plenty on both wings. Is Sancho? Sancho is a right winger. That's his preferred position, but he can play on the left. He can. He played on the right for Dortmund. He's played on the right for United. He's played on left for United. So he can play on both wings. His preferred position is the right wing. And you can make an argument. I mean, I think the thing with Sancho, Aaron, is that what was so sad about the situation was that had Sancho not said anything, he would have had a good run at the right wing position, because Anthony obviously had the situation with what happened with him back home, and obviously that affected him. And then, to be honest, from January onwards, Anthony was kind of in and out of the team, was barely there, really. He didn't start the FA Cup final. So if everyone's saying Ten Hag has favoritism, he didn't start. He started Garnacho, I think, on the right, and then obviously from left. So the issue now is that with Garnacho coming through and being there, if you're going to bring in Sancho, Garnacho has to be dropped, or Rashford has to be dropped. So who's going to be on the left? Is it Garnacho or is it Rashford? So, so you play, if you drop Garnacho, then you're playing Rashford, Højlund, and then probably Sancho. And then, of course, you've got likes of Anthony's there, and Ahmad is there. So these are the things. I think that, it's not like Sancho just walks back into the right wing position personally, So yeah, that's what I'd say. But he can play on the left, obviously. I'm not going to read that Present's comment. Go back to the beginning of the stream, buddy. De Zerbi is not really established. He got double reconciliation and has only had 2 seasons at Brighton. I don't think. Yeah, he's not. Well, no, he is. He's established in the sense that he's a Premier League. He's a Premier League manager, I guess, somewhat. But again, you just got to look at the options. What are the options that are there? Said, big up everyone who's watching as well. By the way, Tuchel wants control. I don't bring you if he won't be. I mean, that is something I would say about Tuchel. Tuchel isn't someone who I guess develops youth. Tuchel doesn't develop youth well. I'm trying to actually think of a youth product that Tuchel developed really well, and I generally can't think of one. So that might be a problem. Everything comes. Did you know INEOS is like 5 managers in 6 to 7 years with Nice? Probably. That's something. Mega, however, has a different opinion and says INEOS have no backbone if they listen to the fans. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you're right and wrong, because I think people criticize the Glazers for not listening to the fans. You know what I mean? So you have to listen to the fans to a certain extent, but at the same time, you also have to do what's right for the club. and the Glazers have not done either. They've not done what's right for the fans, and they've not listened to the fans, and they've not done what's right for the club. So there's got to be elements of both. I think the situation with Ten Hag, as we said at the beginning of the stream, is there better out there? And what effectively myself and Tom is saying is that if Ten Hag gets sacked, more than likely it's probably going to be Tuchel coming in. And Tom is back. Big up, Tom. I will go back to the questions. Guys, get those likes up. Come on, almost 100 people watching. Let's get to 100 likes. Let's get to 100 likes on this video. It doesn't cost you anything. You can listen to me now. Like the vid, and subscribe if you're new. You know, so I said I am stunned by the poll. I really am. 82% in, 18% out. Like the majority of the fan base must be Turek coming in. That's maybe what they want. I thought it might be 70 or 60, but a good 82% is a significant majority, you know. So you know, that's at least that's what I say anyway. Like I said, for guys who obviously want to know about the Ten Hag news, Ten Hag spokesman, go to the beginning of the stream and listen. Obviously, from the first. This stream has literally been an hour in. So if you want to know about the Ten Hag news, what's going on behind the scenes, go to the beginning of the show. I can't recap everything all the time if you've not obviously come to the beginning of the show, guys. Right. So let's quickly just go, because right now we're talking about player transfers and stuff like that as well now. So the Ten Hag news, go back to the stream, watch the first minute to the first about 35 minutes. That's where the information is. We've also moved on. You know, it's been an hour, guys. If you're coming in late, I'm sorry. I can't recap everything all the time. You know, go back and listen. We started like an hour ago. So let me so I think just to answer your question, Tom, let's come to you. Yes. Evan Carpi, do you think, so we obviously talk about Sancho, do you think Todibo will be signed as Ratcliffe owns Nice, and it will be I can't even read that, but basically saying like, do you think Todibo might be signed given that Ratcliffe owns Nice? Do you think it'll come loan, purchase, etc.?
I don't necessarily think it boils down to just because he owns another football club that they're going to ship players straight over from there. I think they might maybe look at it more from Man United's perspective. If they want to loan some players out, they can put them over there and see how they do and put them in a different environment. You've got to think of, well, they've just lost Nice have just lost their head coach to Ajax, Francesco, so they're looking for a new head coach as well to go into Nice. They've also lost a couple of key players over the last couple of seasons that they need to replace anyway. Todibo would financially bring Nice a bit of leeway in terms of FFP if they want to re-galvanise the team. But it's not necessarily going to be Todibo that they end up going for. Yeah, they want a centre-back. Like I said before, he fits the profile that they would want to recruit players for, between 20 and 26 years old. He's got, I would say, decent leadership capabilities in the team. He's a standout figure within the team. He's one of the key players for Nice. Do I think he could come into Manchester United and adapt? Yes. I think he's on the peripheral of making the probably starting squad for the French national team, head into every single tournament. You know, I think, like I say, he's a decent enough player, but just based upon that Ratcliffe has a relationship with the other football club, that I think that they'll sign him. No, I think it will base solely down on if they believe he's the right player that fits the style of play that they want. And if he doesn't, characteristically or technically fit the style that they want, they won't end up finalising a deal for him. But they can use Nice to finalise in terms of sending younger players over there and maybe getting a better deal in terms of they can have an experience playing week in, week out. And it's not like you have to negotiate with clubs to do that. Again, the relationship's there with Nice to do it. But Manchester United and Nice, it's not as simple as that Man United can put a bid in for €1 and they're going to sell him for €1. They have to do a deal that is going to be financially beneficial for both Manchester United, but also Nice in terms of their finances, so that they can stabilise both football clubs. And effectively, that's then where they're going to have to run it through. But I don't think just because of a relationship, it means that he's going to come. It'll be if he fits the profile of player that they want.
Thanks for Tom. Appreciate it. Let me just see if there's any other questions before we just move on. Let me have a look. That address to Debo, because that was we talked about Sancho. We'll come to Bruno second. I'll just come about this. Richard Hawkins. Big Richard Hawkins says, is there any way that they would sack Ten Hag, let Steve McClaren take over a year with Jason Wilcox and wait for Ancelotti's contract to expire next year? I don't think Ancelotti's coming to Manchester United, Richard Hawkins, but I like the premise. But I guess the gist is that, like, is there a situation where they don't find the right manager, they still sack him, and that Stephen McClaren basically takes over for a year or a couple or 6 months or whatever while they continue to find a managerial search? Is that something that they entertain, or it's more like no. We've spoken to those people.
Yeah,
it's probably going to be one of, like, Tuchel or De Zerbi type of thing.
I think they would go for a genuine head coach. I don't think that they would buy into anything of get rid of Ten Hag and keep his team on. When a manager gets sacked, his team normally goes with him. I probably would expect that Van der Gaag will go. Erik Ramsey's already gone. Benny McCarthy, you might find a role for him, maybe in the youth system if he wants to accept that, or maybe he wants to go and experience it for himself and be his own coach somewhere else, like what Kieran McCurran and Michael Carrick did a couple of years ago, and they've had brilliant successes already for such short amount of time in elite football anyway. And then you can say for someone maybe like Steve McClaren, it might not be as bad keeping him on, but keeping him on with a new coach coming in, and because he's been at Manchester United before, he has massive wealths of experiences of the club in the good times when he was a coach here years ago, and also in the bad times, in the most recent times. And almost as an adaptability scale, if you bring in a manager like a Tuchel, like a De Zerbi, they're going to identify things pretty quickly with their own team of who they believe is good enough or not. But having somebody there like a McClaren, who's been there through the 2 years where it's been rough, if you want to say, but he will also add a lot of wealth of experience in terms of the current playing squad, the standards of the football club, and an expectation for it. So McClaren, they might find a role for him to stay on, but I think it would be unlikely that he would stay on in any scenario anyway, because I think some new manager will want to come in and bring everybody that he wants to bring in with him. And the one thing that I know, especially with INEOS, is if they do end up getting rid of Ten Hag, this myth that managers come to Manchester United and they don't get what they want in terms of a coaching staff. For example, if you bring in a new head coach or a manager.
Oh, sorry. There's people saying Benny's calf is already gone. I mean, I think it's left.
Yeah, well, yeah. In terms of if they give him an internal role, if he wants to stay on, is what I'm saying. But I do believe that he will probably leave anyway, regardless. But he's already lost a couple of his coaching staff anyway, is what I was saying in terms of Erik Ramsey and stuff. So if they do end up going, then they'll Ten Hag, that is anyway. They might find a role for McClaren. They might not. In the same way, like with Benny McCarthy. That's the only reason that I used that scenario. But if we're saying it for a new manager coming in, then they will let that manager appoint who he wants to bring into his team, whether that's 5 people or 10 people. They're going to let them bring who they want in. But the one thing that Manchester United haven't necessarily done is they've given that full support to a new manager coming in. With Ten Hag, he was allowed to bring in 2 guys from Ajax, Michel van der Gaag, and I can't remember the other guy's name. Erik Ramsey was already here, as a lot of people know. Steve McClaren was somebody we brought onto his team to bring into the football club. The goalkeeping coach has always stayed the same, I think, since Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was here. So he's almost taken on a couple of the staff that's already here right now. He's not brought anybody. He's not brought his whole fresh platoon in and then gone forward with the people that he trusts in. So, in an ideal scenario, I think if Ten Hag was to be appointed, say now, he would have brought maybe 6, 7 people from Ajax, from maybe the fitness department, sports science, medical and rehabilitation. You can say maybe he might have brought another couple of assistant coaches in with him. Look at Pep Guardiola at Manchester City. He's got 4 assistant coaches. That's just 4 assistant coaches. He's got 2 fitness coaches. He's got a sports science, coach. He's got a set piece play coach. He's got a defensive analyst. He's got so many different coaches. It's unbelievable. But Ten Hag was only allowed to bring in 2 assistants from his predecessor club in Ajax that he was coming from. That's not a great model and precedent to set. So if INEOS did make a change, that's the difference that they will change, is they will give a manager control to bring in who he wants to bring in. And they're not going to just force people to stay on the manager coming in and just say, work with these.
Okay, no, that's good. I think that's actually good to hear, actually. Because as you said, I think I didn't quite understand the idea of, okay, you're going to take a few and work with, under the current regime, it just seemed to be a situation where United would just kind of chop and change, mates rates type of situation, and the manager maybe could bring 1 or 2 people, but they'd have to work with the existing structure, which I think probably did give some restrictions to the managers that were coming in. Let me have a quick. So I think one of the big topics that's been talking about is what's been going on with Bruno, and everything comes. What's the update with Bruno? You think he will leave? You think Rashford will also go? I mean, it's a good question about Rashford as well, actually. Yeah. What are your thoughts on Bruno? Because there have been talks about. I don't know. I suspect it's not particularly reliable. But there's murmurings about Bruno leaving, new contract, etc. And obviously and then obviously just a little bit about Rashford as well. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I think with Bruno, to be completely honest with you, it's almost a crossroads between the football club and himself personally. His agent has, how can I say, he's got long-lasting relationships with Europe's top football clubs. His agent has got a very good relationship with Bayern Munich. He's got a very good relationship with Real Madrid. And he's got a very good relationship with Barcelona. There's 3 top European football clubs there that you could see Bruno Fernandes, if he left Manchester United, he could go to. There's 3 options for him. Real Madrid, for example, they've just lost Toni Kroos. They might recruit another midfielder. There's another player that they could go for. Barcelona, for example, they've got young players in there like Pedro and Gavi, who are brilliant players. Frankie de Jong's an injury, risk. Is an injury, problem. He's got massive fitness issues, and he can't deny away from the injuries that he gets through a season. So they might need a replacement player to come in there and cover or take the role from him, or maybe pressure off of the younger players that I just mentioned in Pedro and Gavi. And again with Bayern Munich, they're going to bring in a new manager in Vincent Kompany. They're going to back the guy if he maybe says that I want an experienced attacking midfielder, because Jamal Musiala is a brilliant player, but maybe I just want a bit of competition there for him next to him. It's a player that you bring in. But the thing with Fernandes is his agent has done that for a reason, based upon if he did leave in the summer, he's got the options out there already. Similar to what I said with INEOS, they've contacted managers, but they've not made a decision. The exact same thing for this case. The only difference is Bruno Fernandes personally, he wants to stay. He's happy. He's the club captain of Manchester United. He's just lifted the FA Cup. He had one hand on the trophy next to Harry Maguire for last season as well. So he's won a couple of trophies in the last couple of years at Manchester United. So we do see that as an expectation to step up. But he wants to win the big 2, which is the Premier League and the Champions League. And effectively, that's INEOS's role, to sell the project to him and say, we're going to build a team, not necessarily around you, but around a style. Are you comfortable playing in that style? If he says yes, he's prepared to stay. And by all means, from what I've heard anyway, he wants to stay personally. And the only thing that I think people can make a meal out of this is because Saudi Arabia are flirting around paying stupid figures for players. If Saudi Arabia came in and gave Manchester United an offer that they can't refuse for a player like Bruno Fernandes, he is 28. He is supposedly going to hit the heights right now. If you get big money offer for a player like that, for example, I don't know, you get £100 million offer for him or €100 million offer, INEOS might look at that and think we can reinvest that in 3 or 4 players.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the way that unfortunately football is going now. And Marcus Rashford, I think I'd say exactly the exact same thing. If a decent offer comes in, they'll target it. But the 3 players that I know for sure anyway that INEOS have arguably put as untouchables is Kobe Mino, Alejandro Garnacho, and Rasmus Højlund. They believe those 3 players had a life-breathing force for the future of the football club. And that's why they don't want those players going anywhere. No loans, no silly injuries like they've had maybe with younger players from years ago. They want to protect those players best that they can and give them the best opportunities that they can to succeed and develop. But that's maybe where a couple of years ago, Marcus Rashford didn't have that support. Bruno Fernandes, when he came in as a lot younger player, he didn't have that support network around him. That's the difference of what I'm saying. But Fernandes, in terms of himself, he wants to stay. And if he was given the option of staying or going, he would stay.
Thanks for that, Tom, man. Appreciate it. I think that's a good. I mean, I'm seeing. Seeing Fabrizio tweet regarding Casemiro. I assume he's in the same category as players that are expected to leave United in the summer if a good proposal for a good offer comes, probably from Saudi Arabia. Is that the gist of Casemiro as well? Is it? Would you say?
Yeah, the thing with Casemiro is he's on top money at Manchester United, and he's still got another couple of years to run down on his contract anyway. So himself personally, he's financially in a good position where he is. He's at a big football club, so he's got a big profile, he's got a big presence that he can still play. Love it or hate it for how he's had a season this season, but Casemiro, effectively for how the season's gone, he's not had a great season, but he would look at it almost on par to say, well, I had a good first season, I had a poor second season. Can I maybe hit the heights in the third season if he gets the chance to or not? But again, if you get a good money offer coming for him,
just need to interrupt you because have hope, relax. Your club is still washed. Yes, I'm still hating on my day off. Says HH for Chelsea fans. So, well, big up UHH, big up UHH. Thank you for coming on Twitter and your thoughts about yourself. All I will say is this: is that if you, I don't know whether you can see what you can see to my right. I don't know whether you can see it. Maybe you can see it. I don't know. I don't know with the shades. You might not be able to see it, but that's a trophy. I don't know whether your club will. I actually don't know when your club will win a trophy again. But just so you know, that's what a trophy actually looks like. Just FYI. So just gonna put big up HH. Maybe we should. Maybe at some point we'll talk about some Chelsea transfers and links, etc. Because that's unfortunate. Maybe we'll talk about who Chelsea linked to next, because apparently it's oh yeah, sorry. And the other thing as well, big up enjoy the Conference League. That's
you've got to qualify for it first.
Oh yeah. You need to qualify for it. But I don't know who is. I don't know who they'll be playing. Actually, is it confirmed who they'll be playing?
I don't think it's been drawn yet. But
no, they have to draw. So I suspect it's possibly someplace near or close to Siberia. That's my prediction. But we'll see what happens. That's my prediction. Actually, speaking of which, now that I just here, I know it's a United stream, but obviously they've got are Chelsea actually linked with anybody in the summer actually? Aside from obviously they've got the signing the defender that's come in. Are they with everything that's gone on with the management and structures? Are Chelsea actually going to be spending big in terms of getting new signings or something like that? Have you heard anything about that, Tom?
They want a number 9. That's the one thing that I do know for sure. They want a proper number 9, 20 plus goals this season, credibility in the bank, experience. They want somebody who's going to lead the line forward. They've tried the model with players from years and years ago now. We're going back as far as Morata, Lukaku. They've tried young models now, and they've even gone with youth through their own ranks with Tammy Abraham. They just haven't found that perfect player, and that you could maybe even make a case for ever since Drogba retired, they've not really replaced the number 9 position for long term anyway. Batshuayi's a decent player, but he wasn't a consistent game in, game out sort of player. So, they've had issues up front, in particular in the number 9 position. And ever since Hazard's left, they've lost that key frontman player. That's the issue that you could probably say with Chelsea. They tried maybe replaced him in part with Cole Palmer for for what we've seen in the short term right now, but we have to see if it lasts for long term. But they definitely want a player like that. Looking as well at the market for when they're trying to sell players because of PSR, players like Conor Gallagher and stuff is a player that they might have to sell and they might get rid of. Trevor Chalobah's another one. So you look at those sort of players, and if they sell those players, ideally they're going to want to replace them with somebody. So I would look at it and say that they're going to probably try and sign a number 9, go all out for whoever they want, and then PSR contracts in terms of players that they want with Gallagher and Chalobah, try and maybe offload some players off the books, try and find a replacement for the money that they get for those players, and just fit them into the squad. But again, with the coach that they're going for in Enzo Maresco, the focus is going to be on the future, not necessarily by superstars. But the number 9 that they want a proven player. That's the one thing that I do know with Chelsea.
Fair enough. I can see Chelsea's getting some. Apparently that's over. I don't think there's any connection with that. I don't think. So we'll begin to round things up because obviously been going for almost an hour and a half or so. Big up everyone who's in chat, who's been liking. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to it. So your bottom right hand corner. Obviously, we'll be any obviously additional news regarding Ten Hag, transfer ownership. We obviously will be live for that. So really appreciate it. I do not want Enzo Maresca. I want to win now. Unfortunately, I hope I don't even need Tom to even confirm that he's your manager right now. He is your manager. I don't know what to say, HH. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. So
Maresca. Maybe as a cohesion, Arteta was phrased as only putting the cones out for him. Maresca's only another mould of that, is he not? You could maybe make an argument for. He's worked with Pep. He's been one of the assistants.
Exactly.
Maybe give him 4 years, £600 million. You never know.
Oh,
he might do what Arteta's done, but
before I forget, everyone copy. Yeah, we've not actually talked about it. Olise, yes, the talk about because there's actually been talk about Olise. Is Olise going to go to Chelsea? Speaking about Chelsea, is Olise going to Chelsea or is Olise going to Manchester United? What is the latest update regarding that? Like, do you know anything about that, Tom, regarding where he might be going to?
Yeah, with Olise, he was interested in moving last summer. He had Chelsea on the table. Chelsea ended up going for Cole Palmer instead. There was a bit of an issue in terms of his contract and certain things like that. He ended up renewing. Manchester City were interested in him as well. They ended up signing Doku instead. For this summer anyway, Chelsea are interested in the player. But again, like I say, they want a proven number 9. So if they can't maybe get the player that they want for the price that they want, or identify the player that they ideally want for that number 9 position, they could just target another forward player like an Olise. And you could maybe say for Manchester City, for what they lacked and lost when they when they sold players like Mahrez and Sterling for the last couple of years, direct wingers. In the winger selection for City, they've only got one direct winger, which is Doku, and he can only play on one side. So ideally, they would probably want to sign another one, and Olise would fit the bill for the player for that sort of profile that they would want. The only issue that clubs have with him is the injury record. But if you can get proper rehabilitation and a proper program around him, if you can keep him consistently fit for say 80% of a season, that's better than him being maybe having a 4-month layover or 2-month layover every single season where you're going to lose him and you're going to miss him. And with Olise coming to Manchester United, the one thing that I know is he definitely wants to move this summer if he gets the opportunity to move. He wants to step up to a bigger football club. Ideally, this expectation of that he would want to play in the Champions League isn't there. He wants to play European football. He wants to buy into a project where he's going to be wanted and he's going to be a future star for the future of a football club. Like I said before, City's model with Pep Guardiola is coming towards its end. That project is coming towards its end. So that might not be a good sell towards Olise, unless Pep decides that he wants to stay a couple more years and signs on the dotted line. Chelsea have a project idea that they're going to try and build with Maresca. So there's an idea that he could jump on board there with that idea. And INEOS are probably going to build a new model going forward, whether it's with Ten Hag as their manager or it's with somebody else. And he might look at that and think there's an opportunity there as well. So with Olise, he's a player that Manchester United definitely want and will try and get. But in terms of the price tag that Crystal Palace are quoting, they're wanting upwards of £70 million. Manchester United will not pay £70 million for him. And that's what I was saying before. They'll pay a fair price. They will pay with in mind the Manchester United tax on top of it. But that's it. That's where the line will be drawn. There won't be we'll move the goalpost just so we get the player. There's a price we ideally want. There's a price that we're willing to stretch to, but we're not going to go over the line to get him.
That's fair. That's fair. Okay. Thank you for that, Tom. Really appreciate it. I think so. Just final. I think there might be one or two more questions, and we'll round things up. I think. Let me just have a look. Appreciate everyone for your ongoing support. It's obviously been a very good show, and I want to thank Tom as well for answering all the questions, and obviously in the chat being engaged as well. Really, really appreciate it. Make sure obviously you like and subscribe and get involved as well. We addressed Bruno, I think, didn't we? Yes, to Debo. Oh yeah, sorry, Jarvis. Big up Jarvis. I don't want to miss your question, Jarvis. Do you think Wan-Bissaka will be a priority to sell this window, or does the club plan for him to stay another season?
I think with Wan-Bissaka, it primarily again comes down to if the right offer comes in for a fee that Manchester United are happy to take, and they look at the fee that they get for the player. Similarly, what I said with Chelsea, with Chalobah and Gallagher, if they get the sort of price tag that they want for the player, if they can take that price tag and then look in the market and think if there's a good reinvestment into a new player, maybe a couple of years younger, who maybe a new manager or Ten Hag would want to work with, and it fits the style of play that they inevitably want to mould it to play, then I think they would probably do the deal. But like I said on Jarvis' show just last week anyway, when we discussed about Wan-Bissaka, the last 18 months, particularly last summer, he had a lot of interest from Italy. Juventus, Inter Milan, and there was one more Italian club, I can't remember anyway, off the top of my head. When Inter Milan were looking at selling Denzel Dumfries, which they didn't end up doing in the end, if they would have sold Dumfries on the open market, Wan-Bissaka was the player that they was actually targeting to go and get. And it was estimated that they would roughly be looking to pay around £20 million for him. So you can look into that for what you will in terms of evaluation or a price tag. I'm sure Manchester United would demand a more higher fee for that. But again, the interest is there. So if they want to maybe do a deal with Inter, it can be done, or do a deal with another football club, it can be done.
Thanking you for that, and big up Jarvis, man. Hope you're doing well. And I think there's any other big questions that I can see. We kind of just there's one last one from Richard Hawkins actually. Considering John Evans' loyalty to the club and his knowledge, do you think he will get a coaching role? Yeah, I guess what is going to happen to Johnny Evans? Do you think he's done at United, or do you think he might come back in a different capacity?
I think he might leave Man United and play another season. Maybe if one of the promoted clubs.
Yeah.
I think maybe more linking towards maybe Ipswich because of Kieran McKenna's links to the football club.
True.
I think you might dive into that just to have maybe another year playing in the Premier League if he gets that opportunity to do so. If it doesn't come, I think he would take up a coaching role. Absolutely. He's done his UEFA licenses to coach at youth level if he wants to. So, like I was saying before about Benny McCarthy and Steve McCullough, if they kept some of the coaches on like they have done for a couple of years, like they did with Eric Ramsey and a couple of the other guys, there's positions available for them if they want to take roles up. And Johnny Evans, I think, is a credible character. His experience, like the guy said, loyalty to the club, knowledge, experience would suit well for young players of this football club to work with. And even if he didn't be coach, again, you can see what Darren Fletcher's role is within the football club. He's almost a glue man. He's got a hand in the youth team. He's got a hand in the recruitment. He's got a hand in manager relations, training. You could see maybe Johnny Evans having that impartial role there if it works out. But for me, if I had to probably say more towards with him, I think he still wants to play one more year if he can get it somewhere.
Thanking you, Tom. Appreciate it. Just speaking of Chelsea, I think they've just announced it says it'll be announced on Monday. Deal valid until 2029. Geez, 5-year deal, option until. Wow, that is. I did not think of 5. Wait, to understand the agreement is now done on contract valid until June 2025. They also got an option to extend until June 2023. 2030. Sorry, that's wild. That's wild. That's wild. Right. I'm just going for a final comment from Rob, who's big a bitchy. Thank you, G and Tom. Great show as always. Keep up the good work, guys. Take care. And I think we'll end up with that, guys. I think all this comment, fake news. Sorry, HH. It's on Fabrizio's channel. It's true news. I'm sorry, HH. A 5-year deal, a 5-year deal, option for a 6-year deal, man. So enjoy mascara, man. Sorry, Maresca, not mascara. I keep getting sorry. 5 years, man. 5 years, But yeah, thank you guys so much for joining. Really, really appreciate it. And thank you, Tom, as well. I think it's really been a formative, especially in Hag. Like I said, there's a lot of speculative news and things, and I can always, I feel like myself and the community can always rely on you to address and answer the questions that we have regarding the whole thing, and to not really basically just BS us, basically, to actually be clear, especially if you don't know or do know, and I think especially this show, it's been really, even for me, regarding where the club is at the moment. I think a lot of people just look at stuff, but I think, when you really see the structure behind INEOS right now, what's going on, I think everything starts to sort of make a bit of sense. And so I know obviously you'll be live again, obviously, with yourself if we hear the new official news of 10 Hag. So yeah, thanks again, Tom. Really appreciate it. We'll be back, obviously, hopefully this week with some more transfer news, United news, and maybe other team news, as you saw with Chelsea as well. Maybe we'll be talking about that as well. But yeah, thanks everyone. Remember to like, share, subscribe to Red Devil Studio. Follow us on Twitter. We are United X. Make sure you check out me on Twitch as well as Kick as well. Have a nice day, everyone, and cheers. Peace.